Don't forget to give this video a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel not to miss new favorite stories. I was lost in the gentle cadence of my own thoughts when I felt his presence approach from behind. His warm hand settled lightly on my shoulder, a silent yet electrifying invitation to step beyond the familiar into a realm where dreams and passion intertwined. As I turned, our eyes met in a spark that transcended words. A silent conversation of unspoken promises and boundless possibilities. In that tender moment, it felt as if time itself slowed down, allowing our hearts to converse in a language of hope and desire. The world around us faded into a backdrop of soft light and subtle melodies, leaving only the undeniable pull of our connection. A future where every shared glance and delicate touch paved the way for an endless adventure in love. The evening enveloped my modern apartment in the soft glow of subdued lamps, as if promising to forget the everyday clamor and chaos of the world beyond these walls. I, Samantha, stood in the kitchen, feeling how the space around me filled with a unique magic of solitude. After Matthew left, this home had become my sanctuary, a place where every little detail, from the glint of sunlight on the glass table to the gentle whisper of the wind outside, reminded me of the possibility of rediscovering myself. I carefully arranged the groceries on a spotless surface, as if each item played its role in creating the perfect ambiance. Hands accustomed to the tasks of familial comfort now moved with special care and tenderness, as though I were striving to fill the void left by the departure of my beloved. A light dinner was taking shape amidst the melodious clatter of pots and the soft rustling of napkins, while the aroma of fresh herbs and vegetables imbued the space with a quiet hope. Every minute of that evening became a slow, deliberate journey into a world of memories and inner emotions. Gazing out the window, I caught glimpses of street lamps shining like symbols of life eternal beyond my personal universe. In that moment, it seemed as if everything around me had paused, yielding to my own breathing, my thoughts, my yearning for freedom and independence. The sense of loneliness that once felt heavy and empty now took on a new meaning. It was not so much a pain as a quiet invitation to reflect on myself, on the past, and on what might still be discovered in this transformed world. That quiet, almost sacred silence promised that even after loss, one could find something valuable. The opportunity to be alone with oneself, to savor the taste of freedom, and to learn to live anew. As soon as the light dinner was nearly ready, I sensed that something unseen was gathering in the air, like a harbinger of an impending storm. In that moment, every sound seemed imbued with a special significance. The soft patter of rain, the barely audible creak of the floorboards under my steps, the gentle rustle of napkins, all as if foretelling a change, the anxious breath of fate. I moved slowly through the kitchen, absorbing every detail of the setting. Everything around me appeared exceedingly familiar and cozy, like an old photograph where each image preserves a fragment of a bygone life. Yet, despite the apparent serenity, something inside whispered that the evening was preparing a trial that would upend the usual order of things. Every little detail, from the tiniest shadows cast by the light through the window to the scarcely noticeable rustle of fabric on the table, suggested that the calm before the storm can be deceptive. It was a moment when the silence began to thicken with hidden tension, a premonition of something unexpected. Within my soul, a quiet excitement grew, as if the universe itself were preparing to change the course of my evening. And in that instant, I understood. Even in the most tranquil corner of life, the seeds of change lie hidden, capable of stirring the deepest chords of my being. In the midst of my routine, when I had almost lost myself in the calm of the kitchen, something suddenly made me turn around. Through the dim shadows of my modest living room emerged a silhouette so out of place in that intimate setting that my heart skipped a beat. It was Bradley, a longtime friend of Matthew, a man whose presence had always stirred mixed feelings. He stood in the shadow, nearly merging with the surrounding atmosphere, as if his very existence was part of that quiet yet unsettling world. His gaze, full of unspoken words, penetrated right through me, stirring a tempest of emotions and memories. An indescribable blend of anxiety and strange attraction overwhelmed me, making me forget about preparing dinner and plunging me into the sharp reality of the moment. Every movement he made seemed measured, as though he had been studied down to the finest details of my inner world. In that moment, I felt the familiar sense of coziness give way to an unknown force, breaking through the boundaries of my personal space. Bradley, without uttering a single word, became a living embodiment of the unspoken and the forbidden, making me acutely aware of how fragile the line between safety and the unknown can be. Bradley's gaze, filled with silent messages, stirred a storm of conflicting emotions within me. On one hand, I understood that his sudden appearance in my personal space was unacceptable, disrupting everything I had built to protect myself from pain and loss. On the other hand, an indistinct, unsettling, and forbidden attraction began to emerge inside me, like the quiet whisper of a forgotten dream. Every inexpressive gesture of his, every barely noticeable movement became a mirror reflecting my own doubts. I felt a fire of contradictory emotions ignite in my heart: fear, rejection, yet also a gentle curiosity that awakened a desire to understand what lay behind that mask of silence. My thoughts oscillated between the clarity of reason and vague, indistinct desires, reminding me that life is rarely black and white. Standing before Bradley, I found myself at a crossroads where every step could change everything. The internal struggle tearing me apart was reflected in the slightest nuances of my gaze and breath. I knew that I had to make a decision: to defend my independence or succumb to the temptation of experiencing something new, even if it was dangerous. In that silent confrontation, I sought answers to questions that had long been locked away in the depths of my soul. Moments filled with silence and shared glances unfolded between us as if along an invisible thread connecting two worlds. Bradley stood motionless, maintaining the silence, and his look conveyed more than words ever could. I felt a delicate line stretching between us, a boundary between the past and the present, between what was forbidden and what was anticipated. In this silent dialogue, every movement, every subtle intonation became a message encoded within that quiet space where words seemed superfluous. I could hear the music of nonverbal signals, from the slight tension in his shoulders to the trembling of his breath, barely audible beneath the rhythm of my heartbeat. That invisible border, so fine it could almost be felt, enticed me with its forbidden allure. It evoked the image of those unspoken words that never found their voice, leaving room for dreams and fears. Deep within, I realized, even silence can be so resonant when imbued with hidden meanings, and every second becomes a test of the strength of my desire to understand myself and the world around me. When I left the kitchen and made my way into the living room, the world around me began to transform, as if unseen forces were slowly yet inexorably altering its appearance. The city lights at night, breaking through the vast panoramic windows, turned into twinkling points of light that reflected off the gleaming surfaces of the furniture, creating an illusion of endless movement. Every sound, whether it was the distant hum of street traffic or the soft whisper of wind sweeping through the streets of Chicago, took on a special meaning, reminding me that even calm can harbor a threat. The living room, once filled with a familiar, cozy atmosphere, transformed within moments into a space where every detail came alive under the surge of an elusive tension. Heavy drapes, subtly enveloping the windows, seemed like guardians of secrets, while the faint glow of a table lamp created whimsical patterns on the walls, as if drawing signs and symbols that only I could decipher. Every shadow playing on the floor gained a dynamic quality, and even the static objects suddenly began to breathe in unison with my quickening heartbeat. The measured silence was broken by occasional yet insistent sounds: the creak of the old wooden floor, the soft echo of footsteps reverberating off the cold walls, all merging into a peculiar symphony of anxious anticipation. In such an environment, it seemed that even the air was saturated with the energy of change, compelling me to feel every cell of my body, every movement, as if the universe itself had decided to reveal its true, multifaceted nature. I felt as though an unseen hand was slowly but surely squeezing the space around me, imbuing it with a sharpness and clarity I had never noticed before. In every corner of the living room, I sensed the presence of something unseen and ancient, as if the walls were breathing alongside me, conveying their history through soft rustlings and echoes of distant memories. For a moment, even my reflection in the gleaming coffee table appeared distorted, as though the world around me was being rearranged in preparation for a new chapter in which I would become the heroine, forced to embrace the challenge of fate. Memories of past encounters, unspoken words, and hidden feelings seemed to surface, merging with the present and filling it with an elusive magic. The sense of tension was further amplified by the image of Bradley, who appeared to penetrate to the very core of this room. His silent presence took on new contours in every shimmering glimmer of light and each shadow gliding along the walls. I felt his gaze, laden with hidden promises, blending with the overall atmosphere of the living room, as if an invisible connection between the past and the present was erasing the line between the forbidden and the anticipated. In this strange dance of shadows and light, every movement became a symbol of an internal struggle, where even silence screamed of an impending storm. With each passing moment, I increasingly felt that the once familiar and safe space of my home was ceasing to be a refuge, instead becoming an arena for emotional battles and inexplicable experiences. The quiet of the living room was now filled with echoes of my thoughts and feelings, and every sound, it seemed, underscored fate's resolve to alter the course of events. In this magical and slightly ominous setting, I began to perceive myself as a participant in a grand spectacle, where every detail, from the creaking floor to the twinkling city lights beyond the window, became an integral part of the great drama of my life. An ineffable power of the moment seeped into every cell of my body, forcing me to forget my everyday worries and plunge into a world where fear and desire intertwined into a single stream of emotions. I could not predict what trials fate had in store for me, but every moment of that evening spoke of inevitable change, and that its force was capable of transforming even the most familiar corners of my world. Deep in my soul, I understood that this evening had irrevocably changed me, granting me the opportunity to view life anew and to discover those aspects of my spirit that had long remained hidden behind the veil of the mundane. In the silence of the living room, where every corner seemed to breathe past moments, memories began to come alive like the pages of a long-forgotten book that I was once again compelled to read. Sitting in a soft armchair by the window, I involuntarily drifted back to the days when the house was filled with laughter and conversation, when every morning began with a quiet assurance in the promise of tomorrow. Yet now these images felt both distant and painfully close, a reminder that the past does not always yield to the present. Recalling the early days of life with Matthew, I saw myself as happy and full of hope. Back then, every little detail carried a special significance. The warmth of his hands, the gentle look with which he greeted the dawn, and even the simplest daily moments took on an aura of eternity. But as it turned out, even the brightest memories can wound when they collide with the reality of loss. And now, gazing at the emptiness left in the wake of his departure, I felt a strange blend of longing and liberation. In this new life, where each day brought not only relief but also pain, I began to question what was truly real. Were my dreams back then as vivid as they appeared to those in love? Or had they long since dissolved into the mundane routine? Memories of Matthew, his smile and the quiet words of support, now seemed like ghostly echoes of a bygone era in which I had once believed unconditionally. Yet they also left me with doubts. Were those moments really what defined the essence of my being? These reflections were tinged with shades of regret and an inexplicable sorrow mixed with a hint of liberating lightness. I realized that every memory, even the most painful, teaches us something new, compelling us to change and grow. And so, sitting alone with myself, I began to reassess my own history, trying to understand what had led me to this moment. Perhaps the inevitable compromises and losses inherent in every life choice had shaped me into who I am today. Fragments of conversations, smiles and glances, witnesses to our shared joys and failures, drifted to the surface. Yet these images now mingled with new fears and doubts, creating a chimera in which the past and present were inextricably intertwined. My thoughts vacillated between the desire to reclaim the former tenderness and the realization that time relentlessly carries away all that once seemed eternal. With every passing second, I grew more aware that the gap between dream and reality was becoming increasingly unstable, and the choices I had made in the past were taking on new shades of meaning. Doubts had firmly taken up residence in my heart like uninvited guests, forcing me to re examine every decision. Could one ever return to a time when everything was simpler? Or was it that very turning point, when my world was upended, that marked the beginning of a long journey toward self discovery? These questions delved deep into my soul, evoking both anxiety and a yearning for answers. In each quiet recollection, I searched for a sign that would validate my feelings, only to find a soft echo of lost certainty. Encounters with Bradley, his silent presence, and his subtle hints, like invisible strokes on the canvas of my memory, made me ponder the nature of feelings I once thought unconditional. Was my love for Matthew merely a reflection of lost security? Or did it conceal a truth so multifaceted and complex that I could never fully grasp it? Every thought, every memory seemed to warn me. The past cannot be erased, but one can learn to live with its echoes, allowing them to become stepping stones toward a new life. Thus, immersed in a whirlwind of doubts and memories, I felt my inner self rapidly transforming, being reborn into something new. And although the pain of loss continued to resonate in every corner of my heart, I began to see in it not only sorrow, but also a strength for the future, a hidden spark capable of igniting hope even in the darkest moments of life. In that moment when time seemed to stand still, all my inner contradictions reached their apex. Standing in the living room, surrounded by the shadows of the past and the uncertainty of the future, I felt every nerve in my body fill with acute tension. Bradley, like a silent catalyst for these emotions, drew closer with each passing moment, and every barely perceptible movement of his echoed deep within my soul. Every drop of doubt, every particle of indecision accumulated over the years, now flared up in a brilliant burst, shattering the established confines of my world. My heart pounded in time with an irregular rhythm of breath, and my mind, once immersed in calm reflection, became an arena for a fierce battle between fear and desire. The inner voice, long subdued by the shadow of loss, suddenly rose up loud and demanding, forcing me to ask, what do I truly want from this life? And at what cost am I willing to pay for genuine liberation? I sensed that at the very limits of my strength, the line between prohibition and temptation was vanishing. Every glance he cast, every insignificant touch, even the most subtle, resonated with a storm of emotions, from a sudden surge of guilt to an inexplicable desire to plunge into the unknown. Inside me, a drama unfolded where no single emotion could claim dominance. Each one, like a mighty storm, sought to break down old barriers, releasing something new and uncharted. At that decisive moment, I felt that the choice had already been made, albeit unconsciously. Every particle of my being demanded change, even if it risked losing control over my own life. Bradley's gaze became a mirror reflecting my inner torment, echoing those very fears and dreams I had long hidden behind a mask of calm. An invisible connection was forged between us, charged with intense energy, where every second pulsed with the struggle for my true self. My heart screamed in the silence, and my mind sought refuge in the chaos of emotions. It was in this whirlpool of doubts and desires that I realized there was no going back to the old tranquility. Deep in my soul, a realization was born that it is precisely in this struggle, in this harsh yet honest confrontation with oneself, that the possibility of rebirth lies hidden. It is here, on the verge between safety and the unknown, that I discovered the strength which might lead me to a new life, filled with truth and authenticity. At the very peak of tension, when the world around me was contracting into a silent vortex of emotions, the unexpected hum of a car sliced through the quiet like a crack in the mirror of reality. The sound of approaching traffic reminded me that beyond the walls of my apartment, an inexorable rhythm of life raged on. With every passing moment, my heart quickened its pace, and my thoughts oscillated between the inner storm and the sudden realization that time moves relentlessly forward. In the doorway, as if incarnated fate itself, appeared Matthew. His figure, initially barely discernible in the corridor's gloom, gradually took on distinct outlines, and every one of his movements seemed imbued with familiar care, yet tinged with a warmth that now felt strangely alien. His return signaled not only change, but also a glimpse of a reality that disrupted the fragile balance of my inner world. I felt the intense moment dissolve into the awareness of the need to retreat back into familiar boundaries, even if those very borders were no longer capable of shielding me from the complexity of my emotions. Matthew entered the apartment with a quiet, measured step, his gaze filled with care and tenderness, as if inviting me to forget what had just transpired behind my back. Yet, deep down, I knew. His presence could never erase the imprint of what had occurred between Bradley and me. At that very instant, time seemed to freeze on a fine line between past and future. The long-awaited yet unexpected meeting with Matthew brought not only the joy of a return to familiarity, but also the painful realization of irreversible change. His soft, reassuring words attempted to restore the illusion of normalcy. Yet, within their depths, I heard the echo of something elusive, something that could not be so easily forgotten. The moment our eyes met marked the beginning of a new reality, where old emotions clashed with fresh challenges. Matthew strove to hide any traces of worry or lingering questions, but in his gentle voice and subtle movements, I sensed an understanding that every encounter between us was always more than just coming home. It was a sign that the world does not stand still, that life is full of changes and unforeseen twists, and that in these very moments, fate reveals its dual nature. The intrusion of the external world served not only as a trial, but also as a lesson. Even in the most secluded, sacred corners of the soul, contact with reality is inevitable. Meeting Matthew made me reflect on how easily one can lose balance between the inner self and external circumstances, and how vital it is to summon the strength to embrace new challenges, even when they arrive at the most unexpected moments. After the storm of emotions, when external events had already subsided, I tried to return to my usual rhythm of life. Matthew, like a gentle angel of salvation, entered the apartment and immediately began recreating the atmosphere of that world I had so desperately tried to preserve. His caring words, familiar gestures, even the tiniest details, all seemed like attempts to close the gaps through which the cracks in my inner world had appeared. I watched as he carefully drew aside the curtains, letting in a soft light, and meticulously put things in their proper places, as if each small act restored order amidst the chaos of my experiences. His voice was calm and assured, yet I sensed that behind this mask of care lay something more, a fine line separating the illusion of normality from the depth of inevitable change. Inside me, despite my efforts to restore everything to its former state, a mysterious blend of memories and unconscious desires continued to simmer. Every time Matthew touched my hand or looked sincerely into my eyes, I caught the faintest glimmers of something else. Memories of my encounter with Bradley, hints of the forbidden hidden deep within my consciousness. Those moments felt uninvited, like a quiet yet relentless whisper, reminding me that the illusion of normalcy is a fragile mask, not so easily donned and forgotten. I tried to smile and respond to his tender words, as if immersing myself in the familiar rhythm of daily life that once brought me comfort. Yet each smile became a compromised bridge between the past and the present, between who I was and who I could become. In my heart, questions had already taken root, demanding answers, and every touch, every sincere moment, reminded me that true harmony is never merely superficial. Thus, in the quiet conversations over dinner and in the mundane tasks, I attempted to dispel the inner chaos by pretending that everything had returned to its old course. But a deep shadow of doubt continued to haunt me. The illusion of normality, so familiar and warm, was merely a fragile veneer behind which a new, unpredictable life lay hidden. And although it appeared that everything had reverted to its usual flow, inside me, quiet revolutions were already underway, ready to change everything at the most unexpected moment. Several hours had passed since that fateful evening, and as I sat in the hushed darkness of my apartment, I felt every minute transform into an endless whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The home that had once seemed a refuge from the storms of the outside world had now become a place where echoes of the past and glimmers of the future intertwined into a complex pattern, evoking both pain and a strange enchantment. I sensed invisible threads of fate, woven from moments of tenderness and the bitterness of loss, permeating every fiber of my being, prompting me to ask, who have I become after everything that has happened? Memories of my encounter with Bradley gradually gave way to deep reflections on the nature of my own desires and fears. His silent presence, so unexpected and forbidden, stirred in me long-forgotten feelings that I had so carefully hidden behind the familiar boundaries of calm and propriety. Now, confronted with what once seemed alien and unacceptable, I began to wonder if there might be a possibility for a new beginning. After all, every moment spent with him had left an indelible mark on my soul, like the unseen hand of an artist creating a masterpiece from a chaos of emotions. My thoughts oscillated between recollections of past joys and the harsh realization of change. Memories of Matthew. His caring voice and tender touches had now taken on a different, multifaceted meaning. I tried to restore the familiar picture of the world where everything appeared predictable and safe, yet an inner voice would not let me rest. Every time it seemed that the illusion of normalcy once again wrapped the home in comfort, a crack appeared on the surface, allowing new, unfamiliar sensations to seep through. They were as real as everything before. Passion, doubts, the desire to understand myself, all intertwined with the awareness of the loss of my former self. These new reflections reached deep into my soul, awakening in me a yearning to change, to find a new harmony, even if it meant bidding farewell to long-held beliefs and fears. I began to ponder how difficult it can be to accept the ambiguity of life, where joy and pain are so intricately intertwined, creating a fantastical kaleidoscope of emotions. Every new thought, like an echo of the past, made me question the path I had chosen, yet at the same time it opened the possibility of viewing the world from a different angle, allowing me to feel that change is inevitable and perhaps even necessary for personal growth. As night gradually gave way to dawn, the first rays of light penetrated through the curtained windows, as if promising a new beginning. I understood that that evening, filled with contradictory emotions and unexpected encounters, had left an indelible mark on my life. The pain intermingled with hope, the anxiety woven into the delicate fabric of my dreams. These were all parts of my experience that could never be erased, only understood. Every sigh, every elusive thought in the quiet of that night became steps on the path to self-discovery. In that solitude, I began to see the possibility for transformation. Perhaps my encounter with Bradley was not a mere accident, but destiny's sign that I was meant to experience new facets of love and passion, to overcome my fears and find the strength to embrace every aspect of my personality. I realized that in life there are no absolutely right or wrong paths. There is only the choice we make and the consequences with which we must live. Hidden in that choice is a wisdom that can lead to a new understanding of ourselves, our desires, and our relationships with the world around us. My reflections became a quiet yet persistent call for change. I felt that I must learn to listen to my heart, to accept and rejoice in what life brings, even if it stirs pain or doubts. For it is precisely in these moments of vulnerability and candor that true strength is born, a strength capable of altering destiny. The reflections in the mirror showed not only the weariness of what I had endured, but also flashes of determination, ready to face a new day with the understanding that every experience, even the most painful, makes us who we are. Thus, sitting in the silence of my apartment, I absorbed every thought and every feeling, allowing myself to bid farewell to the illusory safety of the past and to open up to an uncharted future. I knew that this path would not be easy, that change would bring new challenges, yet I felt within me a strength capable of overcoming any obstacle. A new life was already calling me, and I was ready to step toward it, gratefully embracing everything it had to offer: joy, pain, and an endless array of new discoveries that would shape my destiny.